Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Really excited to have you all here again. Our second CCOVI lecture series of the week. A nice bonus this week to have two in 1 week. So my name is Dan Dakin, and once again, I'll be your moderator for today's presentation. As usual, our lecture today will run about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a question and answer period at the end. So please feel free to type your questions into the question window throughout the presentation, and once that lecture is finished, I'll go through those questions and read them out. So today I'm very, very pleased to welcome Dr. Joaquin Schultz as our speaker this afternoon. Dr. Schultz is a leading augmented reality marketing professor here at Brock University and a CCOVI research fellow. He has researched and taught about AR's potential for marketing since 2014 and has published the first ever conceptual article on AR marketing that happened in 2016. Now in 2020, he launched the world's first dedicated augmented reality marketing courses for undergraduates as well as MBA students. He has worked very closely with wineries on their branding, social media, and augmented reality, both in California, with Paso Robles wineries, Rabble, Hope Family Wine, and Tooth and Nail, as well as here in the Niagara region with Calamus Estate Winery and RJS Arterra. So today, Dr. Schultz is going to be presenting his latest research in a lecture titled Augmented Reality, Marketing in the Wine Industry. So with that, I'll say thank you very much. And Dr. Schultz, please go ahead and share your screen, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan, for this wonderful introduction. Let me see if I can get this going here for you guys. And now, do you see the actual screen with the slides, or do you have like a lot of mess with presenter notes and everything?
No, we can see just your screen there. That's perfect.
All right, perfect. So then we're good to go. Wonderful. So welcome, everybody. I'm really glad that you're interested in this topic, because I think augmented reality is going to be like a super, super interesting topic, not only for today, but also for the next couple of years. And just to introduce myself, yes, that's right. I'm a marketing professor at Brock University. My name is Joachim Scholz, and I'm creating fresh ideas about mostly augmented reality marketing. And I really, really, really can't wait to show you about, can't wait to show you more about AR, but I also want you to experience AR. So do me a favor. I know you can multitask, so pull out your phones and download the Rebel Wine Company mobile app from the App Store. And that should be available both on iOS and Android platforms. It's free, it's easy to find. Just type in your App Store search bar Rebel Wine Company, and just notice the spelling here, R-A-B-B-L-E, and we're going to play around with this just a little bit in a few moments. While you're searching for that, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. Here on the right, that is me looking poetically into the distance with a bottle of Rebel wine in my hand. I believe it seems to be a Merlot wine, and I'm standing here on top of a waterfall in Big Sur a little bit more than a year ago. I was visiting the area again. I taught in this area for 5 years at Cal Poly, and that's also how I got into touch with Rebel. And again, like, I want to just kind of spend some time here talking about like my history, my background. But in the meantime, you guys don't listen to me. You download that Rebel Wine Company app, please, because we want to play. So I've heard early 2010s. I don't know exactly when it was, but sometimes early 2010s, I heard for the first time that phrase augmented reality. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. What is that? So I started digging. I told a friend of mine, a little bit older friend of mine, about it, maybe like 6 months in, and he said, yo, you make me feel old. And so that was encouraging, right? So I dug some more, and I started teaching about it in 2015. I slided it into my digital marketing course at Cal Poly. It was a major part of it, but it was not its own course. As Dan said, then in 2016, I published that conceptual article on it, which was very successful. It's still one of the most read and cited papers today. And launched in 2020 these augmented reality marketing courses here at Brock University. And don't forget to download the Rebel Wine Company app, please. Research-wise, I'm doing a couple of things. I'm looking into how does AR facilitate consumers in their consumption projects. So that's really more like retailing based. I'm talking about how AR in general shapes consumers' relationship with brands, but also with places, with each other, etc. Pokemon Go is the context I'm exploring. And also how companies can leverage AR for telling brand stories and engaging consumers. And I'm not showing you one single one of those projects. It's kind of like a collection of a lot of different things I'm playing around with in AR. A couple of things I'm talking to my students about AR, and a couple of things I'm talking to companies with AR, and a couple of things I'm researching on AR. So it's a good mix, and I hope you're gonna like it. We will find out. I first want to start off by really demonstrating to you that AR is something that you should take seriously. And you probably have heard about AR, and please do me a favor, write into the chat an example you've heard about. Maybe it's a wine example, maybe it's an example from something else. So do this, and we come back to this maybe at the end or in between. For now, I want to just also make you want to think. And this is, I know we're not in a room, so this is just for your own entertainment here, of course. But guess yourself a number. So like, think about like how big do you think is the addressable AR market today? So how many AR devices are in consumers' hands right now? Think of a number, and don't be afraid to think big. How many AR devices are in consumers' hands today? Just come up with your own number. The actual number, it's about 3 billion. And that's because of smartphones. So there are like 3 billion smartphones out there that can run decent augmented reality. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that there are 3 billion users, and it splits up into a couple of different camps, and we're going to talk more about this later on, but it's still quite impressive numbers. We have over 300 million active people on Facebook who are using AR on Facebook and Instagram. That number goes together. And that second block there, I don't know why for some reason I kind of picked 2020. Old habits die hard, I guess, right? So we just kind of drip down there, I guess. 2021, we have 208 active users on Snapchat. You've heard maybe of TikTok, huge user base, not the best AI yet. That's kind of something in development there. And then maybe you've heard about web AR. We will look more today into web AR. That is where the 3 billion phones really come in. Everybody with one of those phones can launch web AR right on a moment's notice, but very, very few people obviously do it. 56 million there, but still an interesting market. If you count all of those together, we have around about 600, soon 800 million active AR users in this world. And the interesting thing is it's just keep growing, right? So like you see, and I kind of highlighted those numbers here on the right side from 600 to like almost 1100. We almost double in about 2 years, and then we almost double again in another 2 years. So there's a huge momentum in AR, and there are many reasons for this. COVID-19 was a huge boost. I won't have time to get into this today, but just in short, people just had time on their hands and they wanted to check out products. So those two things together, entertainment and online shopping, really boosted AR. Another big thing is going to be hardware. You might be surprised to hear that already now you could walk into a store and you buy yourself some AR glasses, or you probably buy them online, right? But those AR glasses already exist, and yes, they look a little bit goofy, and yes, they have a cable attached to them, but that's all kind of intermediary steps, right? In 2 to 4 years from now, we're going to have lightweight AR glasses that have all-day battery power and are from a premium brand, and I'm pretty sure you kind of have an idea what brand I'm talking about here. Jay Samit, he is an important dude at Deloitte and the author of Disrupt You, a book he wrote a couple of years back. So this man, he knows one thing or two about disruptions. And he is quoted saying, just as the internet disrupted virtually every business, AR will cause seismic realignments. So that is the situation right now, right? The situation is right now that almost 90%, not even right now, like 2 years back, almost 90% of big companies were already exploring, piloting, or already using augmented or mixed reality. That's just another fancy term. Less than a third of them really knew what they were doing. And there's a trend here. I call it the competence gap. Here's another survey of top advertisers in the US, and 90 of them saying they're already using. Current users is 55% back, also 2 years, so it has grown again. And future users in the next year or so would be 35%. So 90% together are already kind of planning or using AR. Only 10% have really figured it out. Only 10% have really fully integrated into what they're doing. So this is a problem, right? This is the competence gap. And so you are maybe in that too. You also maybe have heard about AR. You maybe have an idea that it's going to be big. But how are we going to use it? Like, what's my next step? We don't know these things. And I want to say just, you are here, right? Celebrate. This is your first step today. You just did the first step in overcoming that competence gap. Maybe you're one of the 55% who's saying like, I just don't understand AR and that's why I'm not using it. Maybe we kind of overcome that competence gap today or in the next couple of weeks, months, as you kind of continue in your journey. I want to just point out here that this is a big number here. It's the biggest impediment to AR adoption, is lack of understanding. Cost is half of that, and we will talk later a little bit about this. It's also a little bit of a misconception. So lack of understanding is really the biggest hurdle here, and that's why we are here. And you come to the right place, because here at Brock, we are first. As Dan said, we organized and we launched the worldwide first augmented reality marketing courses, undergraduate and MBA level. We're also the first in creating an AR experience for Canadian wine brand. So we teamed up with Calamus, Estate Winery here in the Niagara region. We teamed up with the development studio Up 360, who helped us in this project to really implement it. And our students, I with my students, we kind of came up with a lot of great ideas. We pitched to the client a couple of times. We kind of then we came together between the development partner, the client, and I, and kind of kept working on it. And right now it's sitting with the development partner who are actually implementing our ideas. And if we have time, I show you a little bit more about what we came up with. But I can't give too much details yet because it's not 100% done yet. But when it's out, and we're thinking it's going to be coming out in the first half of this year, it's going to be, we think, the first AI experience for Canadian wine brand, created by us at Brock University, Up 360 in Toronto. So but let's kind of dive a little bit deeper here, okay? What is AR, right? I'm throwing around that term, AR. It stands for augmented reality, but what does it really mean? And what do all of those other crazy acronyms mean? Right? I mean, there's VR, XR, AV, spatial computing, excuse me. What is that? So there's a lot of terms floating around. For today, we're going to only focus on two to kind of sort out the main differences and then just focus on AR. But the biggest confusion often comes from people thinking AR and VR is the same thing. It's not though. So here you see on the top, you see like this dragon flying around. That is augmented reality, and it's augmented because it's like this dragon. You can see actually now how it's duplicated, right? So somebody is filming how that dragon, virtual dragon, it's not a real thing. Don't panic. But how that virtual dragon is landing on that TV. That's also where it's displayed, by the way. And because that person films this with his or her own cell phone camera, it's then getting this duplicating mirroring effect with the screen, as you can see right here. But it's a virtual dragon in a real stadium. And then on the bottom, you have a completely virtual environment, and you see in this screen on the top left corner there, the two dudes with VR goggles seeing nothing else. They don't see anything else. They just kind of see that kind of flying object and the rings and the waterfall in a totally virtual environment. But if you're doing AR, you see the baseball field, you see the players, you see the other people around you, just the dragon is added to this. Those are the definitions for it. It's like AR is augmenting a real-time, direct or indirect view of a physical real-world environment by adding the virtual computer-generated information to it. And then virtual reality is a completely simulated world. So if you think about this, if you're walking outside and you see a Pikachu in front of you or some other Pokemon character, you're in augmented reality because that guy is hopping around on your street corner. If you are suddenly put goggles on in your living room maybe, and you see something completely different, maybe you're on the moon or something like this, you're in a totally different world, in a simulated world, you're like under this bubble. Both of them, by the way, are highly immersive technologies. They're just immersing the user in a different way. AR immerses us via entangling, and then VR immerses us via extracting. That's a key difference, right? So entangling means I entangle the physical world with digital objects that are placed in it, and then the extracting is I'm taking the user out of the physical world into a totally different environment. That's extracting VR. And then, of course, sorry to complicate things more, there are the things in between, right? So on the left here, you have what is called the geofilter, right? And so this is San Luis Obispo, the Bishop Peak mountaintop here. That's where I lived for 5 years. This is the SLO, the San Luis Obispo, or SLO for short, is kind of a filter that goes on top of your camera, and so does the little sticker. So that would be something like on the low level end of AR. And then on the right side, you have like a peek into my old apartment here, and everything is real but the door. And the door opens, and you can then walk into the door and be in that dorm room, and that is the set for a TV show or for like a Snap original show that you can watch on Snapchat if you wanted to, if you're so inclined. And you can kind of poke around there. You can try out a couple of things. You can play around with the recording devices, etc. You can look around. So here you're in a low-level VR environment. So AR, VR, they are two different things, but they're sometimes kind of passing on to each other, right? Because that whole door started in AR, and then you kind of walk into this low-level VR environment. So that kind of covers the basic. It also kind of gives you already the first idea of what you can do for yourself. So that low-level AR, the geofilter here on the left side, that could be your first step into AR. And you know what? If you are even only half talented on the computer, you can have this up and running by the end of this week for zero money down, right? So like super simple to do, super easy to do, and low-level investment, pretty much free, maybe a few bucks. So this is something you could totally start this week. By the way, have you downloaded that app? Because now we want to play. And while we're playing, so there are two ways you can play along. Number one, you can just pull out the app and then just kind of play along on this next couple of slides. And the effect won't be as nice as it would be on the actual bottle, because your screen is flat versus the bottle is somewhat curved. So it won't look exactly the same, but it looks decent enough for just trying it out and seeing what we're talking about. So that's one thing you can do. And also the other thing I want us to do, just already start popping in your questions. If you have any questions so far, before you forget them, because we still have like half an hour to go through, before you forget your questions, we're going to have 2 slides coming up where it's, or 3 slides coming up where it's a perfect opportunity for you to already put them into the chat, so then can get ready on filtering through them and passing them over to me. So On the left side, this is your first target, if you want, right? On the right side, you see how it actually looks like. And the left side is the actual label bottle. So that's how it would look in real life. And then you can see how, looking through your phone, if you do it yourself, or if you look on the right side here of the screen, how that whole label comes to life. It starts moving. You maybe have heard about it from 19 Crimes or other wineries. This is Rebel Wine. It was the first one in the United States doing this type of AR. And you can see here how the clouds are kind of getting darker and denser, and how fire is spitting out of the sky, and so on. If you have your own app, you have sound as well in that app. I took the sound out here because I wanted to talk a little bit to you guys over it. This is really cool, right? Because it enchants the bottle. It brings the bottle to life. It's somewhat magical, and it's really a great way for using something which would be normally like a very passive media channel and kind of make it an active media channel. So that's really, really cool, especially if it's maybe a collector's item. Here are two other bottles, the Cabernet Sauvignon, the Zinfandel. If you have the app, right, test it out. If you don't have the app, or if you already know them, pop in your questions, so like we kind of get some ideas going from what is interesting for you the most. But you can see here also that these augmentations, when you see them, or if you recall them from the previous page, they're much in line with the labels. Like both of them have like this wood carving aesthetic, right? And kind of that fits also the brand. And it is something you want to keep an eye on when you're creating your AR. You want to leverage your brand assets, your brand aesthetics in AR, obviously, as you would do it with any other marketing touch point. You already also maybe pick up on a theme here on these AR experiences here. It's all about that nature is a force that can destroy us, right? So we saw it with the fire coming down. We see it here in a Cab Sauvignon with the volcano erupting and putting waste to the city beneath it. We're seeing it with the Twister here with the Zinfandel. So that is certainly kind of the theme here. And that's going to be important towards our end here. It's like, I want to make sure that you guys remember this, because we're going to come back to this later on when we talk about the entanglement model. The theme here in these AR experiences, nature is a force that can destroy us. These were the last two which were made. The newer ones, actually, if you can try to wiggle it out, like the Merlot is a bit hard to get, just kind of go back and forth maybe. The Rosé is a bit easier. Those are the newer ones, and you can see how there is a bit of a story component coming in here. The Merlot Medusa here, she speaks, right? And the mermaid, the mermaid here, she also has like a whole story to tell, and like the ship is wrecking based on her doing. So this is becoming more storyfied, which is interesting development with Rebel Wine, I must say. So I hope you had a chance of kind of checking this out. I believe there's going to be a video available. I'm not 100% sure when this is going out, or if you want to just have those images, you can email me and I send them to you as well, so that you can try more on your own time. Let's go to the next study here. Who uses AR, right? I already told you it's going to be a big thing, but here I want to kind of double down on this. Right now, in 2021, there are about 100 million AR users in the United States. And I know this is not Canada data because I don't have it. It's hard to get these type of data. US was the only data I was able to get. But the difference is going to be like small, right? I mean, not that there are 100 million Canadians, that's impossible, but like on the percentage level, right? 29%, that is right now the current adoption rate. And I would expect it very, very, very similar to be in Canada. So almost a third of the population. And if you only look at the internet users, then yes, a third, 34% of the internet users are using augmented reality. Let's put this into perspective here for a moment. We have 100 million in the US right now, AR. If you look into social media, same country, it's 226 million users, active users, right? So that's more than twice of what AR has, but also keep in mind that social media is a lot older than augmented reality, right? So Facebook, which wasn't the first social media, but that launched in 2004, right? So like, we don't even know if the current AR version is that as big as Facebook. I would make the case, yes, it is, not only because it is run by Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and other social media companies, but based on the maturity of the market, I would say the AR market is roughly right now where social media has been in 2004 or 5. And there we see that like social media has a 15-year head start, and yet we are halfway there in terms of users. So I'm very, very encouraged here when it comes to like the user base in AR and the growth of it. And here's another thing. 35% of AR users use it every day, right? 24% use it weekly, and then just less than 20%, 90% every month. That means that depending on where you put the cut, but between 60 and 80%. So if you say weekly is kind of your cut, or monthly is your cut, right? But 60 to 80% are your active, semi-active users here of these 100 million users just in the US, right? So end of the story here, AR is like catching up to social media in terms of user numbers, which we know is huge, right? And 60 to 80% use it on a very frequent basis, which is also amazing. Which brings us to the next question. Who are those people who use it the most, right? And you probably heard about the millennials, right? Millennials or Gen Y. Maybe heard of Gen Z, which kind of the younger kids. You had probably of Gen X, and then the baby boomers. And here you have like those different age groups. And I always wonder, why is it, by the way, that Gen X is the only group that doesn't look happy in pictures? Look at them. They're all so happy. Look at the millennials. They're super happy. And the Gen Z, I mean, that guy is like super cool. And then like the others are also super happy. And the baby boomers are super happy. Why shouldn't they be happy, right? Gen X are never happy. I don't know why. If you find like a picture of Gen X being happy, send it to me, please. Anyways, you see here, what is the, when are they born, right? So for example, baby boomers between 1946 and 1964, and that's really the only real date that is there. You can see this in like the birth rates because of the World War ending and the like contraception beginning, or like birth control being more available. So there's like a huge change in demographics, and that makes sense. And then Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, all of those are kind of made up. It doesn't really matter if you're born like 1980, are you Millennial, are you Gen Z, Gen X, sorry, right? So like this is fluid, but let's just kind of eyeball it here. The two biggest adopters are obviously the younger ones, right? So 57, 53% for Gen Z and Millennials. And then it drops down pretty quickly. Gen X is only 22%, still good, right? Baby boomers, 7%. If you go older than that, right? If you're going into the silent generation, the greatest generation, then maybe 1 or 2 people use AR, right? But so the big market obviously is in the younger audiences here. Millennials buy a lot of wine, right? Millennials buy 20% of all wine sales, right? I mean, Gen X is buying the most. So from that perspective, 22% is maybe not the biggest number of AR adoption rate, but they have a lot of money they spend on wine. Millennials do spend a fair bit of money on wine and are huge adopters of AR. So that's a wonderful target audience for AR in the wine market. And then Gen Z, well, on the old end of Gen Z, they are already in legal drinking age, right? And then think about how it will look like over the next 5 years as AR matures and those kids are getting older. Like that target audience will be just being more using AR and buying more wine. So there's like certainly a demographic here, a segment to keep an eye on. The secret, or one of the greatest things about AR is that it can target those younger generations maybe better than most other media formats and in more engaging ways, right? So the reach of these two generations is just one of AR's key selling points. Here, this example, it's from McDonald's, and I'm loving it, right? Because it uses like AR using Snapchat in like a way how it actually also makes sense for what they're trying to sell, right? Because you only give them a 10-second snap with an augmented reality McDonald's hat on in order to hand in your job application. And I think that's perfect for a job at McDonald's, because honestly, if I don't like that person at McDonald's in the first 10 seconds, like that whole thing is lost. That whole interaction is lost. So the first 10 seconds really matter a lot. But it's a great example to reach these younger audiences. Now, these are a couple of numbers I want you really to sink in, because it just speaks to the power of AR, how much reach is in AR. We have worldwide 265 million daily active users on Snapchat. More than 200 of those, so like 80% or so, engage with augmented reality every single day, right? So it is part of that generation's life. Snapchat has 75% of all people between 13 and 34 years in the US. So like Snapchat is, if your brand is targeting the this demographic, the millennials, and then later on the Gen Z, if this is your demographics, you have to get serious about Snapchat, right? It's a huge opportunity. It's also Super Bowl size audiences, right? So during Super Bowl Sunday, there were a couple of brands creating branded lenses. Now, I should say that in these numbers up here, not all of those lenses are branded lenses, right? Those are branded lenses. This is just from companies promoting themselves via Snapchat. Almost 60 million US Snapchatters engaged with these branded lenses, and they used them a couple of times, right? Because we had over 200 million activations of these lenses across these 59 million users. So massive audience, Super Bowl audiences. And I think I can hear you thinking, there's a question coming up, right? Is it expensive then? No, but it can seem like it, right? And it really depends what you want to take out of it. And that is why I kind of give like massive different numbers here, ranging from free to over $100,000, right? It really depends how much do you want to spend. If you want to just dip your toe in, if you want to kind of get one of those geo lenses I showed you earlier, that one on the top of Bishop Peak in San Luis Obispo, and you can get this up and running by the end of this week, it won't cost you more than like $50 maybe. Maybe it's even free, depends on like how you kind of make it available, right? If you want to kind of maybe get some cool graphics and you pay somebody a couple of $100 to make you a cool graphic, right? So you're still kind of talking hundreds of dollars. The low end, those are simple selfie filters. You probably have seen those floating around on Instagram, on Facebook, on Snapchat. Those can be less than $5,000, maybe $3,000 to $5,000 if you give this to a developer. If you really want to kind of go on the low end and you are a little bit like gifted in terms of computers, like you know your way around computers and you're not afraid of learning new programmings, or you have like a person you can train in these, so you can set them in front of some tutorials. You can do this in-house. Like Snapchat and Instagram, Facebook have created tools that allow you to build those yourself, and then you're back in the DIY territory here. It becomes really interesting when we're talking about the mid-range, right? So those were your more advanced selfie filters, maybe something maybe that has like a world lens attached to it, so that not only the face but also the world in front of you is augmented. Maybe the wine labels we looked at so far most of the examples I'm showing you here, those are maybe falling in the mid-range. You see them here hovering often around about $10,000-ish, right? So up and down a little bit. And then if you want to go high end, yes, the sky is the limit, of course. The one, for example, we did for Calamus, that was a pro bono project we did because it was students and I coming up with these ideas, and our development partner was also doing this pro bono because they wanted to kind of help out and they wanted to kind of get into this type of work. That would be like the low end of the high end in a way in our estimation. But I want to point out one thing, and that is important. It's super cheap and easy to kind of tip your toes in, right? And AR does not have to break the bank. But there are two more things you should keep in mind: ideation and media costs, right? If you are just tipping in your toe, then those you don't have to worry too much about, right? If you're DIY, maybe even low end, the ideation is minimal. And what I mean by ideation is like coming up with the big idea, knowing what the brand is about and what do you want to achieve in this campaign. Like that is the ideation part. If you're really on the low end and you maybe have just some brand colors, or you want to have like some whimsical filter with your brand logo, there's not a lot of ideation necessary, but obviously then the payoff is also less, or like the mileage you get out of it is probably also less. And I have an example about this in just a moment. If you kind of really kind of going more into the mid-range, especially the high end, you should definitely invest some extra money on ideation. And that is, again, like, what is the brand about? That is super, super important, because the way how AR works because people make it work. And with people, I mean consumers, right? So you have to show something to the consumer. You offer something to the consumer, like a selfie lens or like a wine bottle that is moving, and you must hope that the consumer finds it interesting enough to kind of play around with it and then share it with their friends, right? So there's a lot of collaboration required by the consumer. So like the better your idea, the more likely this will happen. And then the other costs I wanted to point out are media costs. Again, like if you're just tipping on your toe, hey, that can be all free, because you can leverage your existing media, owned media properties. You can leverage your email, you can leverage your packaging, you can leverage your tasting room, right? Brochures or flyers or posters or whatever you have there. So media can be free, but obviously if you invest a lot into the application or the content, it probably makes sense to amplify and even maybe proactively advertise for it. But anyways, you see the range here. Keep in mind, you can still get started this week for free if you wanted to. But here's an example of the high end, right? And I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying you have to start here. That's insane, right? So $750,000, that's a lot of money. Or is it? And that is the real question, right? Because I want to show you that even though it seems a lot, and obviously it depends on the brand. This is Taco Bell, they have some good money lying around. But even though it seems a lot, maybe, it really isn't that much. It's a real bargain. It's an absolute bargain. And here's why. So this is one of the first lenses that came out, still one of the best in my opinion, because who wouldn't want to be a taco, right? It came out with Cinco de Mayo, perfectly timed, and it had about 16.5 million unique users, right? Remember, that is a couple of years old, right? That is one campaign, 16.5 million users. That generated 224 million views in one day. So they pretty much did with one lens and 16.5 million unique users what several brands did in last Super Bowl with 59 million users, right? So like it's a very successful campaign because it's great content. It's like super ideation, it's super timing, it's super execution, it's fantastic. So 224 million views in one day. If you calculated a standard metric from that, right? A standard metric of how much bang did you get for your buck? What is your return on advertising spend? ROAS, right? And the typical number for this is the CPM, or cost per meal. Like, so per impression, per 1,000 impressions, Taco Bell paid a little bit more than $3 here. Compare the $3.35 CPM to CPM from national TV of $14.60. That's almost 4.5 times more on national TV, right? So it's a great return on investment here. It's a bargain, right? So even though it looks expensive, it doesn't have to be really expensive when you calculate what you get out of it, right? So there are 2 answers to this, 3. Is it expensive? Not really, right? Because you can start for free. Can it be expensive? Yeah, but does it pay off? If you do it the right way, and that's the key, right? You have to do it the right way. You can't just kind of throw something out there and hope that it will be this next Taco Bell success, right? So you have to really put some cool ideas behind it, but then you can easily beat out the reach and the engagement and the cost efficacy of national TV advertisement. Okay. Keep those questions coming, right? So like I kind of hammer through. We have another 7 minutes or so, and I want to make sure I show you 1 or 2 more really, really cool things before we go into the Q&A. But if you have questions now, put them in there. I want to spend not too long on thinking about how does AR work. And the good thing is, good news here, you can read up on this by yourself, right? So this is a 2016 article I've published. It holds up very well. It has this layer world metaphor. You can like either read this. If you email me, I send it to you, right? Send me an email. My email address is at the end of this, or you can get it from CCOVI. Or you can, if you have the Rebel app still downloaded and you have those images, and I sent them to you as well. Or if you have a 19 crime bottle lying around, you can do the same thing for 19 crimes. And you can ask, for example, like, what is the target? What is the content? What is the user? What are the bystanders, etc. Right? A lot of cool information in this article, including that entangle model. And this is, I want to give you at least a glimpse of that entangle model, right? But before we go there, right, because this is now kind of the foundation we have in a way. Because so far we've covered what is AR and what is VR, why is it a big thing, and who uses it, right? I already also told you that you could get started this week for free if you just kind of dipped your toe in. And you could kind of start thinking like, how would it fit into my brand? And do I have the right target audience, for example, or where would I go with this? Just for a moment though, I want you to really imagine that you already decided to incorporate AR into your marketing. You already decided you will do this. And now you probably have a question. Whatever questions you have, and I come back to this in like 4 or 5 minutes, pop it into the question box, right? So make sure you write your question in. What do you need to know in order to get started on augmented reality? Write it in the chat so we come back to this. One question I'm sure will come up is, will AR work with my existing wine label? Yes, it will. It will work with your label, though you maybe want to change it a little bit. You maybe want to add a call to action, for example. Maybe another question is, okay, how do I give it to the consumers, right? How do I offer AR? Well, you have options. There are different ways out there of how we can implement AR. There's platform, web AR, app AR, AR installations. And I just want to quickly kind of browse through a couple so you see some examples of how they're implemented. Here you see platform AR, which is a really, really cool example, which also kind of combines a little bit like an experiential marketing campaign, not for a wine company, but for a vodka company, Grey Goose here. And what they built this fountain here in the middle of Sydney in the summer, so people came by, experiential marketing, but then they added augmented reality to the mix, On the right here, you see a selfie lens. You see the hand tracking going on right now. Then you see the augmentation, that shaker, that glass, the bottle, the table, all of that is virtual. The glasses, the sunglasses are virtual too, by the way. Right, and then you flip the lens into the world lens, and then you can have a gamified experience where you throw coins into that fountain, and then at the end of it, you can participate in a certain, in like a raffle, and you can win extra prizes depending on your score, I think, right? Really, really cool stuff here. A lot of cool stuff going on. You have AR, you have a real world event, you have some gamification, you have some prizes, right? You have some activation because that thing was a national lens as well, but it was also locally activated. So in the kind of right corner here under the fountain, you have like this business card with that little ghost and that coin. And if you scan that little ghost with these dots, that is called the snap code, that filter immediately pops up onto your phone for zero media costs, right? So of course you have to pay for developing that more advanced filter here or lens, but then distributing it can be totally free if you just kind of have these QR codes in your own wineries, in your own tasting rooms, etc. So that's one example of platform. Here's another one. You scan the bottle in front of you, and then from Vivino, it auto-populates some information about like that wine, like star rating and price, etc. Here's a lesson for you, quick takeaway. Invest in your Vivino rating, right? So ask your fans, the people who love your wine, to go on Vivino and give you like a high star rating, because millennials, they're getting used to kind of scanning the wine bottles with their with their Snapchats, and then they make decision based on those star ratings. There are other platform apps which you could explore. I don't go too much into those, just as a quick example that there are multiple ways of how you can leverage the wine bottle. On the left here, on the right, let's start on the right, that's the familiar one. We've seen this a couple of times. Here on the left one, it is different, right? It's more like a little bit easier maybe to kind of get started with. You can just pull the content you have on your Instagram account, you can pull the content you have on your web page, and you can just replicate something here on the bottle. Well, does that make sense? I think that remains to be seen. I find it a little bit gimmicky, but it's very inexpensive. It costs you like $100 a month to have 3,000 views on that. So it's something you could try out if you wanted to. This is just another example of a different modality. This is web AR, and you maybe notice here that the quality does not look exactly the same, right? It's good, but it's not the same. So web AR, it's a bit easier to kind of get started there. You don't need a client, but it is not the same level of quality. You can see this here, especially on the left with the Baileys, right? For example, we don't have the cool hand tracking on web AR. You see how the bottle is just floating in the sky. It just doesn't look the same polishness as we've seen with the Grey Goose, for example. On the right, you have something totally new. This is called a holographic video that pops out here out of the bottle right now. And it's like a 3D video, like Star Wars and R2-D2 and Princess Leia, etc. And that is something you can do quite easily nowadays if you have access to these holographic studios. Now, you have to again ask yourself, what is the customer experience? And this is, again, my big takeaway. Like, using AR, you can get started, you should get started, especially if you're in these specific younger target audiences. You have to get started there, but you have to be smart about it, right? Just kind of using something because it's out there, it's a new technology, that doesn't make sense. You have to ask yourself, what is the customer experience we want to create? So I'm getting towards the end here. If I may just kind of take an extra minute or so, I have one important bad news for you guys. This is here an overview, and take a picture of it if you like, about like these different modality. On the top left, the platforms, social media, but others as well, like for example, that wine thing on the left before. The app on the lower left, the web on the upper right, and the installation, we haven't talked about this because it doesn't make a lot of sense for our purpose here in the lower right. Most AR happens right now And the best way to do AR right now, in my opinion, is via platform, the social media platforms. We're talking Facebook, we're talking Instagram, we're talking Snapchat. Soon we're going to talk TikTok more, right? But those big ones, that's the best way to go right now. Here's the problem. Facebook and Instagram, because Facebook owns Instagram, they guys have the largest user base, but they do not allow the promotion of alcoholic beverages. So any brand that has anything to do with that. So Facebook, Instagram is out for us. Snapchat allows it, right? So if your audience is in the Snapchat audience, right? Again, like the 17 to or 15 to 35 is dominated by Snapchat, right? It's more people on Snapchat in the younger demographics than on Instagram, and way more than on Facebook. If your audience is in Snapchat, that's your way to go. If your audience is more like in the Gen X, they're not on Snapchat. Forget it. That's not going to happen. Baby boomers, probably not on AR. I wouldn't try necessarily to target baby boomers on AR. Gen X, totally. But that would be a web AR play here on the upper right, like the Game of Thrones example I just showed you. Not the same quality maybe, but hey, still great quality and cheaper to get started, that's for sure. If you really want to spend a lot of money, then you can think about the application. And we don't have time to get into this, but there's a lot more opportunity having an application. There are also a lot more hurdles. It's more costly. It's difficult to convince people to download an application. But for example, like our client Calamus, for the last course we did, that could have been an app, right? Because like this is a very expensive bottle, and we're targeting a certain phase in the customer decision journey, which is after they have built their bottle, and it's a keepsake bottle. And we kind of designed the app in a way that people come back to it, like multiple times throughout that bottle standing around, opened or closed, or drunk or empty or full, right? So we kind of designed it in a certain way that there's stickiness to it. And so in those cases, you might want to invest the extra money into an application that is really like a case-by-case basis. Anyway, there's a lot more I hoped I would be able to show you. I couldn't. I hope that maybe there's another chance at some point of time, or if you want to learn, kind of get into a dialogue with me. There's a lot more I want to talk about this entangle model, especially how it relates to building a strong foundation, which is really about understanding the customer and building a strong foundation about your brand. And I hope I would talk a lot more about Rebel in this case, where I wanted to show you like this cool idea I had once about like how can we make the Rebel AR a better experience by utilizing more interesting AR, but also kind of connecting better into their brand essence. Lots of cool stuff. Maybe we should set up another thing at some point of time. I'd love to come back and talk more in detail about this. And so that is all of the foundation. Then there's some scaffolding, like how to, skipped ahead. There's scaffolding. How do we kind of make sure that we kind of build something good in terms of the scaffolding, thinking about target audiences, thinking about the goals we have, enticing consumers. And then there's a lot more I thought I might talk about. How do we actually then furnish and create great AR experiences? But as you maybe see, there's a lot going on in AR. For now, your next 3 steps is to learn, experiment, and to strategize, right? Learn by hire my students, train your employees. We have online courses planned at Brock University that coming out in this year, which would be open to yourself or your employees. Connect with me if you want to talk more. Start experimenting, getting your face lenses, your geofilters, just tipping your toe into your water. Again, you could get started with this for free by the end of this week. You can have a marker-based AR at an event you're having, or you're running maybe even a student project around it. And if you're kind of getting really serious, the most important thing is to strategize. You want to be experience-driven, nucleus-based. This is the foundation and the entangle acronym, and then the other letters in that acronym as well. But sadly, we ran out of time here. I hope that was interesting for you guys. Again, my name is Joachim Scholz, and I'm happy to answer any questions that there are. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Scholz. It really, really interesting stuff, and it's just I feel like we're getting a bit of a window into the future as well, and you can see where this is headed, and it must be enjoyable for you to be sort of on the front end of that, and to know that that's what's coming. But I can imagine it must also be a little bit frustrating, where you sometimes probably think, why are more people not using this, right? And why are more businesses not using this?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating to see like more like on the side when people saying like, oh, it's going to be a fad or something like this, right? Or it's like, oh, it's just never going to happen or something like this. And again, like I think we are like in the same spot we were with social media 15, 16, 18 years ago, right? Like it's going to happen, and it's going to happen sooner than later.
So a couple of more questions here. So one question is augmented reality used for product and sales or content generation?
That's an interesting question, right? Because I couldn't touch on this. Augmented reality is a lot of different things. So it could be both for any of those and for a lot more, right? It could be used in addition to this also for connecting remotely in a sales encounter. It could be used for business-to-business applications. It could be used for customer service in the back end. It can be even used for product design and operations. So augmented reality is really more like a base technology, right? Similar to how maybe like a transistor is a base technology, allowing us to do all of these beautiful, beautiful things. And so AR is maybe not as important as a transistor, but also like more like a base technology.
Okay, and then are there any particular industries that you think are doing AR extremely well? And I know you touched on sort of different businesses, but would you say that there are any entire industries that stand out? And then sort of a part B to that is, where would you say the wine industry is, in terms of a ranking, if you will?
I can't give you like A to Z ranking, but like on the top, certainly I would say like cosmetics has gotten a huge push, right? Because there's really great applications out there that display makeup over your face, and it's like a perfect scenario. It's a perfect fit between the technology we have, the infrastructures we have, and the consumer demand, and then also the COVID bomb hit it, right? So that's certainly one of the top, and there may be others like furniture, which are like also kind of playing around there at the top. Wineries, wine in general, not at the top, not at the super bottom at all, right? But a little bit less active than I was hoping for, maybe, right? And I think that's the opportunity here. So if you look around, like most of the AI examples I was able to show you on wine, they all come from the same winery, or from the same two, let's say, right? So that Rebel is one of them, but I wasn't thinking about them. 19 Crimes, they also own a bunch of other wineries like Embrazen and like Beringer Brothers and some Chateau Saint Jean. If you Google those, you have really interesting examples there as well. But it all comes like from this one group of wineries. I think wineries should do a lot better, and there are two reasons for this. Number one, it's more and more important to have a direct connection to the customer, right? Because like more and more people don't buy their wine on site any longer. Or like I mean, wineries were always like a special sale, but even if you think about LCBOs, like more and more people kind of now do direct ordering, right? And so that has become immensely pushed by COVID. Down in the US, there's a lot of services which ship you the wine to your door, right? And so a lot of things here are shifting, like in this direct-to-consumer model, which a lot of other industry have gone through. Wine is doing the same thing. So as consumers skip the grocery store or the liquor store to buy their wine, maybe even skip also the winery and just kind of ordering it, having that direct connection on the distance with them becomes super important. AR can help on this. And then the other thing, is, and I forgot the exact number, but it's somewhere in like the 35-45% range of Gen Y again, like the millennials again, and the Gen Z, say, like the ones who are old enough to drink. The brand is super, super important for deciding what wine they're going to buy, right? And it used to be maybe a little bit more based on varietal, or is it red or wine, or is it region, or something like this. But there's a shift towards really identifying a singular brand, like having a brand that stands for something. And that's why I said, so I put so much emphasis, and I wish we had time to get into, right? But the foundation, the essence of the brand, to sort that one out, to having the ideation done first, and then having a strong brand and building AR on top and building social media on top and intermingling these two things together. That becomes super, super important for the winery as it goes through these challenges over the next couple of years, I think.
And then, so last question for you is just, you referenced Facebook and social media and sort of the, now 15, 16, 17 year head start that they've had and the growth, obviously. Do you see down the road a tipping point? Is there a year, or do you think that there will be a tipping point to when all of a sudden AR and VR become the norm, right? And it's something that's just in everybody's daily life. Any guess on a time frame for how long it could take potentially for that?
I would say you're looking probably into June 6th, 2024, 2025. No, just kidding. But somewhere there. I don't think it's necessarily too far off. I mean, it depends, right? So it depends on like what is the tipping point, and that the main core thing which will happen in that 3 to 5 years from now, or 2 to 4 years by now, we're gonna move from AR that looks like this into AR that has a lot of different devices, right? So right now, this is 3 billion devices that are AR capable, 3 billion of those, right? And they're great. They have like super cool scanners. I have 3 cameras and a LiDAR sensor in here. Like this is as good as AR as you can imagine. Like this is total dream stuff right now in our phones already today. The key challenge is right now in the AR market to build AR glasses, right? And so once that happens, you're moving from something you have to pull out of your pocket, you have to swipe to open, you have to find maybe the app, or you have to scan a QR code, right? So there's a lot of friction in here. You have to hold it up. One hand is always busy, right? Towards something that just sits on your face. And so the moment that happens, and this is going to be a gradual climb, right? So the first device Apple will bring out maybe in 2022, 2023, that's going to be more VR based. Then it's going to be the year after very lightweight AR glasses, which is really more like a little bit of text overlaid. But then 5 years, 10 years from now, we're probably looking into the future as you imagine it right now and how everybody imagines it. It's like Pokemon Go with like creatures that have fur and everything. And like, it's just like, I look through it through my glasses, right? And so that's maybe 5 to 10 years from now. Like it's hard to see when this exactly will happen. But when it happens, the phone is dead, right? I mean, one of the reasons why Apple and others, Apple, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Alibaba, all these big tech companies, they spend billions of dollars into development of AR hardware, of glasses hardware and infrastructures, because they know exactly what's going to happen. Like the moment we can have like these glasses, who wants to have a phone any longer, right? If you want to kind of look at your pictures, right? You can look at it in a box, or you can look at full screen or like full 360 degrees around you, right? What is better? So the tipping point is hardware based. And this is when we have like the switch from the phone to the glasses. In the meantime, though, I would not write off the handheld, because first of all, we already have like a huge market for it. We already have like 200 million active users in AR every day. And this is just Snapchat, right? We have 600, 700 million AR users worldwide right now. We have like soon like twice that. We have huge ROIs. We have huge return on investments. We are beating out national TV advertisement by the factor of 4.5. We're getting Super Bowl audiences in an age group that doesn't watch TV on a regular basis. I mean, AI is definitely like right now, like the big opportunity for brands, even though it's still trapped in a handheld device.
All the ingredients are there. It's just a matter of all of it coming together, I suppose. So
yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's all the questions. So once again, I'd really like to thank you, Dr. Scholz, for joining us here today, and everyone who took in the lecture live, and as well as I know there'll be a lot of people who are going to be interested to watch this when it gets posted to the COVI Lecture Series website, which should happen very shortly. So you can find more information about this lecture and all the other lectures at brocku.ca/COVI. Now, the next COVI lecture series is scheduled for next Wednesday, March 31st, when COVI Fellow and Brock University Department of Economics Chair Lester Kwong presents Judging Wines, Preferences, Evaluation, and Aggregation. And this lecture will take place from 1 to 2 p.m., which is a special time. So please take note of that earlier time start. So thank you very much once again to Dr. Scholz and to all of you for joining us, and have a great day.
Thanks for having me.